Today I'm showing you guys how to do a very bright and colorful painting. We're doing this before I started. I wanted to add really light colors, so light blue, light pinkish color, bright green, bright yellow, everything that is basically just really bright and happy. I wanted to do this, so I first layered the colors into the canvas. And you see me doing that on the canvas. So I put the bright blue on top. I'm showing the picture that I'm actually using. It's a landscape. And I also chose a very bright landscape with a bright sky because this was going to help me. And even if you don't have foliage or you don't have trees on the landscape, but at least you have a color scheme in mind and you can add the rest later on. So I start off with the brush, basically just adding the sketch. Just sketching, this is what I want the sky to look like. This is what I wanted to do with the sky. The sun is coming through here. And I layered every single color. I mean, it looks really nice and beautiful just as it is, and just keep on adding color. But I just wanted something that can sprout happiness and really bright. And so I thought it was a really good idea on actually using my fingers for this one. So right after I laid all the colors and everything, and I have an idea, or basically the basic idea, I started finger painting over, but the same color. And I'm going to continue layering. As you can tell, now I'm adding also some bright pink on the bottom part, and I'm zigzagging that landscape so it has a really nice depth in the background. Another thing that I wanted to explain is the colors that I'm using are straight from the tube, and this is also done, and you can do this with oil paints. But when you use a pure color from the tube, it's way much easier, and the paints look much brighter. So that's what we're trying to do here. So I basically had the baby blue or light blue, a really bright pink. This is from Liquitex, and I had some from Golden. I really like those tubes of paint from acrylics because the paint is very thick. I'm also adding this with a hint of white, so that's what you see me here doing. But what we're doing is basically just adding the same color on top of the canvas, and everything is done with your finger or your fingers or your hand. You can just sprout your creativity while doing this. Also, you can definitely do this with oils. I fear that with oils you have a bit of more, you can expand more, and it can definitely look much prettier and more, I don't know. I just love oils as well, and especially for finger painting, I feel like oil is the best. Although acrylic is easier to come off from your finger, of course, you can definitely do the same process with oils. And if you don't like to get dirty, you can definitely use gloves. I just prefer the texture of oils, or the texture of paint on my hands. I really like that feel of me finger painting. It's very fun to do, and I really recommend to anybody that wants to try painting. And you can do so many crazy, goofy things with it, and you can expand your creativity, like I said. And so that's what we see me doing. What I did actually on this particular part is that I added more of the yellow, and because you're adding it straight from the tube and not really mixed in with anything, it looks very bright like in the picture. So I actually explained that right after I was done with finger painting the sky and doing all kinds of things with my fingers, I was going to again use my brush for different parts of the foliage on the bottom and to also add shadow. So this painting goes in a way of adding the darkest darks right at the end of it. So basically, you're doing bright and then very bright, or light, very light, and then going down to really dark or medium dark, and then you go really dark, dark, and then you lift up again, and then you go down again with the color. And it just basically unifies itself once it's done. But that's what I'm doing here, and you see me doing in the picture that I'm adding more color into it. And this is also just grabbing a pretty good size of paint and just plopping it on the canvas. I feel that painting this way is actually like a good exercise for someone that is afraid of making mistakes, for someone that doesn't want to really mess up the painting. And I had that feeling in the beginning, oh, I don't want to mess up my painting. But if you really plop a piece of paint into the canvas, it's like, oh, how am I going to fix this? So you really don't have much control over it. And I think that's the good part about it. And there's always gesso. I was actually talking about it. There's always gesso. There's always ways of erasing things if you ever made a mistake. So what you see me here is actually with the brush. I'm adding some medium-sized darks and also some blues, and that's what I'm doing. And I did a somewhat line. I just wanted to divide the sky and also the foreground. So I actually just basically just swivel the brush right through the middle, and I say, hey, you know what? This is where my ground is going to be, and this is where my sky is going to be. So I basically just divided both of them because I'm not really sketching and just constructing something out of nowhere. What I did was that I created the bushes from the same background color, and this is also very scary, but at the same time, it's very fun. And I once I was doing that, I did the same thing that I did on the sky. I added really bright color and basically just swiveling everything all over. I think about the bushes or the type of pine trees that I wanted in that specific left side of the painting of what I wanted to convey. I want this type of maybe cedar trees, or I want these type of pines. I want light coming through it, so where the light is coming from, and I thought, the sun is coming from the backside. So that's what I want to portray. So later on, after I'm done adding the green tone, but you see me here, I'm going to do a little bit more darker, and right after I'm going to brighten it up. And also I actually did these bushes even like they're all the same size. And what I did is that I lower one of them medium size, and then I did a bigger one. And you notice that I only did five. It's basically just trying my best to have some type of uniformity. Even though it's a painting that is done out of nowhere, you still want to have some type of uniform, basically a little bit of normal into the chaos kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also doing shadow. So as you can see on the right side, I did the two pine trees or the two cedar trees, and I added a shadow. And I did the same thing on the left side. And I also did some type of division right in the middle with the paint. And you see me here just swiveling and just doing division right there, so it looks like a pathway, which is really cool. And this is all by basically just squinting your eyes and figuring things out along the way. And I think that is really cool to do, and it's really a good thing. It's a good exercise. A lot of people think, that, oh, us artists, we just do things because, oh, we want to sell. That's the point. And in my case, at least not in my case, this is more about exercising, practicing, and also for my own sake because I would just want to have fun. Of course, we eat from what we make, and it will be awesome if one day I were to actually paint something and sell it to somebody. But this particular artwork, I want it for a space that I have in my room. And I was explaining that I went to a friend's house and I saw this beautiful art that she had all over living room and her dining room and everything, and I really thought about it. And even though I do have paintings hanging from the walls, I actually don't have as many as I should. And that's a bit off coming from a painter. So what I did is that I created this one because I wanted in a special place in my home. And I also wanted to create something, possibly, I'm into the mood of planting things. So probably going to put the painting right on top of a beautiful plant that I have in my home that I'm actually taking care of very well. Surprisingly enough, it's actually lasting in my hands, and I'm going to do a little like a special place for her. And what better way of portraying something than with a piece of work, a piece of art? So that's what I'm doing. And I want it bright. I want a very bright, happy painting. And I thought that it was the perfect way of basically just giving myself a little pick me up with this artwork. So if you ask what I'm doing, like I said, I went and did like the pine trees on the right side, and you can see that I'm going a little bit upward with it. And I was actually explaining, because this video is actually taken from Periscope, I was explaining that the way I was doing like the little branches on top is like I'm flicking the brush. I flick the brush, I go upwards with the brush, and some parts I add really big chunks of paint, and some parts I add medium-sized chunks of paints, and everything is just done like that. I think it's easier for someone that, if I were to put it like in a more professional way, this is more a la prima, I think it's called, where you do like almost like watercolor or fat over, I think it's that way, fat over. So that's how I'm painting this artwork. So maybe I give you a little bit more of an idea of how this is done. Then again, I go on with my finger, and you see me doing that. And you can definitely do the same thing with oils. You see some of the artists. I wanted to do this with a palette knife, but I think that it was much, much fun with the fingers. So I said, no, I'm just gonna stay with doing this, and I had so much fun. In the middle of my painting session, I had a phone call from work. I ate something, someone asking me for something, and I had to stop for a little bit. So I truly apologize for that. It wasn't meant to be, but this is what happens when you have a job. All right, so we're back. I'm also explaining that, the zigzags and all that stuff is actually really good for the view. And only for the view you can do a straight line, but for me I really like that like space in between where you're imagining that you're going all the way up somewhere, almost like if it's not ending there, and there's also things right behind it. I wanted to do mountains and stuff like that, but I said no, I just want to do the sky, the foreground, and that's it. But for now, it really is coming along. And what you see there, the pause that I actually make is because I'm also on the phone with another customer who called me at that specific time. So now we're actually going to the fun part, which is adding the bright or the light. So I decided, since the sun is coming from the back, I decided that the top branches, which is actually thinner on any pine tree or any cedar tree, they're thinner, that you can actually add a little bit more of the light from coming from the top part of the tree. And then I added some bushes and squiggly lines here and there that makes the painting look somewhat uniform. And I added, branches, and you see me doing all that stuff here. And I did the same thing on both sides. Also, one thing that you're going to see coming up is that right in between the tree, just to give it like the light is coming from there and there's branches and stuff like that, I added background color to some of the tree. So part of the tree, you're going to see some sky color. And what that does is actually just opening up the tree, and it looks more realistic. Even though, of course, this is more like a fantasy slash finger painting artwork, you still have to have, like I said, some type of normal in chaos. So that's what I try to do there. So right now I actually focus on one thing, and I wanted to show my viewers how I was placing paint, and it's very thick layers of paint. And this is done, like I said, a la prima, if you were to be painting in oils. And I love I love how the texture from the paint actually looks on the canvas. So I picked up the brush and I started really grabbing pieces of the paint, of the mixture. And the way I'm doing it is by grabbing the paint with the tip of the brush or with the brush, and basically just rubbing in or placing that paint into the canvas. So that's what we're doing, and in a few moments. So right now I'm actually adding more light into the painting, and I basically just adding light, bright white, just nothing else into it. Remember that this is very thick layers of paint, so basically every time you rub the paint into the canvas, you're also dragging part of the bottom part or whatever was left from the residual of paint that you had in there. So that's what we're doing right now. And I'm just adding basically the foliage, and I'm playing around with the color. I think that with acrylics, it's not the same as watercolor, or I'm sorry, as oils, because in oils, you'll have a little bit more control over the drying process. In here, basically these layers were halfway through the drying process when I was actually grabbing the white paint, so it was very little that I was actually dragging with me. I also did this on the foreground or the bottom part, and I basically just surround the painting with the bright color or the light. I decided now to rub off a little bit of the texture that I created with the fingers, and I'm also taking down some of the color that looks way too much because I wanted to just even out my painting. Now you see me adding also part of the sky color into inside the bushes, inside the pine trees or the bushes on the left and also on the right. And I rub off some part of it. I just repeat the color all over. It just makes it a little bit more uniform, and it just makes it a much more, I guess, happy painting. That's basically my idea for this artwork. I know for some of you, this is a very different way. I've seen people doing different things and different themes. I like to paint with my fingers sometimes. I think is a very fun way to do it. Like I said, I don't mind the mess that I create when I'm painting this way. I always lay down with a brush as to the topic of what I wanted to do, and then after that I'm just finger painting the rest, adding the same color all over and brightening it up with my fingers. I think is really cool to do. Right now I'm just adding the darkest darks, which is the part that I really love because the painting is about to be done. I also was explaining that, painting this way is also a quick way to sketch, a quick way to do a painting. And, and I really don't have hours to paint. I come home from work very, very tired after a very long shift. I get up at 6:30 every single day, and I got home, it was 7 o'clock, and right after I decided that I wanted to sit down and paint for at least perhaps 45 minutes. This specific demo lasted for 1 hour and 20 minutes because, I'm explaining myself of what I'm doing. This is actually a free demo that you can definitely see on Periscope. I really, uh, I really love to do demos live. So that's basically what you see here that I'm explaining to people how I create this. And I am using right now a app called Vimeo that is allowing me to record my voice for you guys, so you guys have a little bit more of an idea of what I'm doing with the painting as I am going forth with the time lapse, because I know it's a little bit more faster than in actual live. But if you would like to see the actual live demo, you're more than welcome to see it on Periscope, and you can actually record it and force fast forward or forward to and see the full video, the full demo. I also feel like if you, when you're painting this way, you have the opportunity to do it both ways. You can do it with a brush, you can do it with your fingers, you can add palette knife to a painting, which I love to do sometimes. So all kinds of different ways and techniques to do it. And I think that the more ways of painting you learn, the better, more, I don't know, like it's more fun to you. Like I said, I also feel like there's colors in acrylics that you cannot recreate in oils, and this is one of them. This painting, you cannot recreate. Just the colors are way too bright. I feel like for an oil painting to get to this level, you really have to get specific type of colors, and you have to mix it with a lot of white. And of course, the viscosity of it as well. Um, like I said, you could do a similar painting, of course, similar colors, but these are golden acrylics, and golden has the brightest yellow and the brightest reds that you can imagine. So these are colors that are basically made for acrylic painters, so or acrylic paints. So recreating this in oils is kind of difficult, depending on the palette that you use, of course. But you can do definitely something similar in oils with this. And I feel like the best way of actually doing a painting similar is by adding it with a palette knife. And I'm sure that you'll have a lot of fun doing this. So now that I'm adding the shadow, I'm actually twisting my hand and I'm adding the paint as if I was sketching. And that's what you see me here. And also allows me to step back and take a look at the paint and where I'm actually adding the shadow and where I'm actually adding color. The color that you see me using at this very, very moment is this bright vermilion. It is actually from Golden as well, and it's very bright. It's like a pinkish bright color, and I'm adding it all over just to repeat the color all over is a thing that I do. And I really love to scrub the you see me scrubbing the canvas, doing this, doing that, tweaking here, like really abusing the canvas and really just painting and enjoying myself doing it. And this work actually really brought up my want to paint in acrylics, but also very well deserved. Basically, just telling me, okay, it is time for you to open the oils and start painting with oils. So you never know. Maybe this is just the beginning of me creating with acrylics for me to just jump back to oils and start oil painting. So, when you are painting, regardless of the medium that you're using, I think there's really not preference. I really don't prefer oils over watercolors or watercolors over oils. I do love the viscosity of oils and how it dries afterwards, and it's just very beautiful just to look at. Oils is a gorgeous medium, and I really love those reds, depending on the brand that you use. I know with oils I create different ways, and I do this and I do that, but experimenting with different types of mediums is really cool to do. So I'll suggest you to start off perhaps doing some acrylics, and later on moving on. I would like to remind you that golden acrylics, like I said, I'm not patronizing the brand. I'm just saying that golden acrylics, like I said before, is, I think, is a really a color that is very versatile, so you can try them for yourself. I really like them. Depending on the color scheme that you use, of course, you can do different things with it. I got a lot of yellow and blues and bright reds and stuff like that. I also like liquid text, which is very much like golden. And another thing that I actually like from both brands actually is that there's different ways of mixing and matching acrylics. There's different mediums out there. There's sand medium, there's definitely different textures that you can use with acrylic paints, and different things that you can do with acrylic paints. There's different ways of painting with it as well. So I'm just glad that I show you guys how to do this. I hope that you guys learned something from it. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome. And this is it. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.